The massive alien dreadnought Dark Sovereign tore through the fabric of space itself as it dropped out of hyperspace. Admiral Kayardal's 6 eyes focused on the blue marble spinning peacefully below. Earth. Another primitive world to add to. The Hegemony's collection. Sir, long-range scans confirm intelligence reports, his tactical officer reported, mandibles clicking nervously. Primitive nuclear technology. Basic chemical rockets. They've barely touched their own moon. Kayardal's scaled lips curled into what passed for a smile among his species. The Veltarians had perfected this routine across 1,200 worlds over 2 millennia. Find a developing species. Demonstrate overwhelming power. Accept their surrender. Strip their world of resources and move on. Deploy the fleet in standard intimidation formation, he commanded. Across Earth's skies, 200 warships materialized like dark thunderclouds. Each vessel dwarfed humanity's largest. Aircraft carriers. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields that could deflect nuclear weapons like raindrops. In the Pentagon, General Kim Tae-ho watched satellite feeds with growing dread. Sir, we're reading energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. Those ships could glass the entire planet. President Martinez gripped his desk. How long do we have? Unknown, sir. They're positioning over major population centers. Kayardal studied the tactical display showing Earth's major cities, marked in red. New York, London, Tokyo, Seoul. 8 billion humans scurrying below like insects, completely unaware their world was about to change forever. Sir, we're receiving primitive radio transmissions from the surface, his communications officer announced. Military frequencies, they know we're here. Of course they do. Fear is part of the process. Kayardal activated the ship's internal communications. All gunners to stations. Prepare demonstration protocol. Throughout the fleet, massive plasma cannons rotated toward the planet. Energy cores that powered small. Stars hummed to life. In the Dark Sovereign's weapon bays, automated systems loaded warheads capable of cracking continents. Target locked on designated population center, the weapons officer reported. New York City, 8.4 million. Inhabitants. Kayardal paused, savoring the moment. This was always his favorite part. The instant before a species realized they were no longer masters of their own fate. Fire. The beam lasted exactly 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Pure, stellar fire, hot enough to turn steel into vapor, carved through Earth's atmosphere, like a sword of light. Manhattan Island simply ceased to exist. The Hudson River boiled away. The blast crater extended into bedrock a mile deep. The shockwave rolled outward like an invisible tsunami. Windows exploded in Philadelphia. Cars flipped in New Jersey. The electromagnetic pulse knocked out power grids across the eastern seaboard. 8.4 million casualties confirmed, the tactical officer reported with clinical precision. Collateral damage extending 300 kilometers from ground zero. Kayardal nodded with satisfaction. Broadcast standard surrender demand. All frequencies. The message transmitted in 50 human languages simultaneously. Primitive species of Earth, you have witnessed the power of the Veltarian hegemony. Surrender unconditionally within 1 standard day cycle or face total extinction. Your governments will present themselves for processing. Resistance is futile. In emergency bunkers worldwide, world leaders stared at their screens in horror. The President of the United States was dead, vaporized with his entire city. Military commanders shouted conflicting orders. Civilian populations fled major cities, in blind panic. But in a small radio station nestled in the Montana mountains, 68-year-old Han Gisu calmly adjusted his equipment. The former Korean War signals specialist had spent 30 years at this remote outpost, officially monitoring atmospheric conditions for the National Weather Service. Unofficially, he was something else entirely. Command, this is Station 7. He spoke into his headset. Demonstration protocol completed. Recommend activation of all defensive systems. Negative, Station 7. Political command structure is in chaos. Stand by for orders. Han Gisu looked at the bank of communications equipment surrounding him. Sophisticated gear that had nothing to do with weather monitoring. Quantum transmitters. Military-grade encryption systems. Direct links to installations that officially didn't exist. He'd waited 43 years for this moment. Command, this is Station 7. I'm assuming emergency authority under Protocol 77 Alpha. Before anyone could respond, Han Gisu switched to the wideband transmitter. His weathered fingers moved across controls he'd practiced with 10,000 times. The transmission would reach every radio, television, and communication device on Earth, and more importantly, it would reach the alien fleet. "This is Earth," his calm voice cut through the static and chaos flooding every frequency. "We received your message." He paused, looking through his window at the star-filled sky where death waited in metallic shells. "Here's ours. You have 24 hours to leave our system. This is your only warning." Silence filled the Montana station. Then from orbit came the sound Admiral Kayardal hadn't heard in 2,000 years of conquest. Laughter. But not from fear or desperation. On the bridge of the Dark Sovereign, alien crew members clutched their stomachs as waves of amusement swept through them. The communications officer wiped tears from his compound eyes. "Admiral," he gasped between fits of laughter, They actually think they can threaten us." Admiral Kayardal wiped the moisture from his 6 eyes as the laughter finally died down on the bridge. In his 2,000 years of service to the hegemony, he'd witnessed the conquest of 1,200 worlds, species that built cities among the clouds, civilizations that could bend gravity to their will, even the dreaded Zephyrin Empire with their planet-killing war machines. Every single one had begged for mercy after the demonstration strike. "Communications, replay that transmission," he ordered, still chuckling. "I want the entire fleet to hear this." The weathered human voice crackled through the ship's speakers again. "You have 24 hours to leave our system. This is your only warning." Fresh waves of laughter erupted from crew stations across the bridge. Even the usually stoic navigation officer was slapping his scaled knees in amusement. "Sir," gasped Communications Officer Vexmar between giggles, "should we broadcast this to the Hegemony Council? They'll find it hilarious that a species with chemical rockets thinks they can threaten the Veltarian fleet." Kayardal's amusement faded slightly. Something nagged at the back of his mind. "First, scan the source of that transmission. We'll make an example of their foolish bravery." Tactical Officer Kexthor's claws danced across his sensor array. The readings made him pause, his scaled brow furrowed as he ran the scan 3 more times. "Admiral, these energy signatures are unusual." "Explain." The transmission originated from a small surface structure, basic construction, primitive materials, but sir, Kexthor's voice trailed off as he stared at his displays. "Our deep penetration scans show massive installations beneath the ground. The energy patterns extend for kilometers underground." Kayardal's laughter died completely. "Impossible. Our intelligence reports show their technology level barely registers on our scale. They're using fossil fuels and splitting atoms like children playing with fire. Sir, I'm reading similar underground installations across the planet. Major construction hidden beneath their cities, mountains, even under their oceans." Kexthor's mandibles clicked nervously. "The power sources are significant. Show me." The main display shifted to show Earth's continents marked with pulsing red dots, hundreds of them, each representing an underground facility that sensors could barely penetrate. "What are we looking at?" Kayardal demanded. "Unknown, sir. The installations appear to be shielded against our standard scanning frequencies. I'm only detecting them because of massive power draws that started immediately after the human's transmission." Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, weapons engineer Park Ji-woo pressed his palm against a biometric scanner. The heavy blast doors slid open with a hiss of escaping air. Emergency lighting flickered on, revealing a cavern carved from solid granite. The space stretched away into darkness, filled with machinery that hummed with barely contained power. "Authorization confirmed," a synthetic voice announced. "Welcome back, Chief Engineer Park. Systems have been in standby mode for 37 years, 4 months, 16 days. Park Ji-woo walked between rows of equipment larger than subway cars. Each piece represented decades of human engineering. Not the flashy technology that made headlines, but the brutal, practical weapons designed by people who understood that sometimes diplomacy failed. "Activate primary railgun array," he commanded. Activation sequence initiated. Charging superconducting coils. Estimated time to full power 6 hours 43 minutes. In Seoul, communications specialist Lee Min-ho received the activation code through an encrypted quantum channel. His cover job at the Seoul National University Astronomy Department had lasted 15 years. His real job was about to begin. "Control, this is Station Tango 7. He spoke into a secure transmitter hidden beneath the university observatory, confirming activation protocol, beginning integration with Global Defense Network. Across the planet, similar scenes played out in underground facilities that existed in the shadows of human civilization. Former military officers who'd supposedly retired to quiet civilian jobs suddenly revealed their true purpose. Engineers who'd spent decades maintaining experimental research facilities powered up weapons systems that had never appeared in any official budget. The Veltarian fleet continued its lazy orbital dance, confident in their superiority. Admiral Kayardal studied the sensor readings with growing unease, but dismissed his concerns. Primitive species often had large underground installations, mining operations, crude industrial facilities, nuclear waste storage, nothing that could threaten ships designed to crack worlds. Back in Montana, Han Gi-soo calmly updated his duty log, the same routine he'd followed for 30 years. Temperature readings, wind speed, atmospheric pressure, all carefully recorded in neat handwriting, except today's entry included one additional line, 23 hours and 47 minutes remaining. He stood and stretched, joints creaking from decades of military service. Through his window, the stars looked peaceful, beautiful even. Hard to believe that 200 alien warships hung in the darkness above, preparing to exterminate his species. Han Gi-soo had fought in 3 wars before accepting this remote assignment. He'd seen the worst humanity could do to itself, but he'd also seen their greatest strength, the ability to prepare for the unthinkable, while hoping it would never happen. The radio crackled with encrypted traffic from installations across the globe. Station commanders reporting system status, weapons coming online, personnel taking their positions after decades of waiting. "Control, this is Montana Station," Han Gi-soo spoke into his headset. "All primary systems activated. Standing by for final authorization. Roger, Montana. You are cleared for autonomous operation under Protocol 77 Alpha. Good hunting." Han Gi-soo smiled grimly and made another entry in his log. The die is cast. Above in orbit, Admiral Kayardal was about to learn that some species prepare for war even in times of peace. Communications. Officer Vexmar pulled up, intercepted Earth transmissions on his display, still grinning from the humans' audacious warning. "Admiral, you have to see this. Their governments can't even agree on a response. Half want to surrender immediately, the other half are arguing about nuclear options." Admiral Kayardal leaned forward. "Show me their military capabilities." The main screen filled with intercepted satellite feeds, primitive aircraft carriers floating on oceans, tanks that used explosive projectiles, nuclear weapons that could barely crack a moon. "Laughable," Kexthor muttered. "Their most advanced fighters wouldn't survive 10 seconds against our point defense systems." But as Vexmar dug deeper into Earth's data networks, a different picture emerged. His amusement faded as he scrolled through decades of military history. "Sir, these humans have been at war with themselves for their entire recorded history. Typical for primitive species, they usually exhaust themselves fighting over resources." "No, sir, you don't understand." Vexmar's voice grew troubled. "Look at this progression. In 1914, they fought with bolt-action rifles and chemical weapons. 25 years later, they had radar, jet engines, and guided missiles. By 1945, they'd split the atom. They advanced their war technology centuries in just 30 years. The bridge fell silent as more data streamed across their screens. Images of massive tank battles, cities reduced to rubble, industrial complexes retooled overnight to produce weapons of unimaginable destruction. "They fought a Cold War for 45 years, Vexmar continued. Both sides built enough nuclear weapons to sterilize their own planet dozens of times. Over. They stared into the abyss of mutual extinction and somehow stepped back without destroying themselves. Admiral Kayardal's scales rippled with unease. Most species the hegemony conquered had achieved spaceflight through peaceful cooperation. They built cities in the stars to explore and expand. Their weapons were afterthoughts, crude tools designed for hunting or primitive conflicts. Humans had turned warfare into a science. The story truly began in 1977, when radio telescope arrays in Arecibo and Ohio detected the first artificial signals from deep space. Dr. Kim Tae-min, a brilliant Korean astrophysicist working with SETI, was analyzing the data when he noticed something that chilled him to the bone. The signals weren't random. They showed patterns of expansion, conquest, systematic movement from star system to star system. "Someone's out there," he told his daughter Kim Soo-jin over dinner that night. "And they're not just exploring, they're taking territory." Soo-jin, then a young military academy cadet, watched her father's hands shake as he showed her the data. "What do you think we should do, Dad?" "Prepare for the worst. Hope for the best." Dr. Kim Tae-min spent the next 5 years building alliances. He spoke to military leaders, scientists, politicians from every major nation. Most dismissed him as a paranoid dreamer, but a few listened. In 1982, he stood before a secret session of the UN Security Council with a simple message. "If they're out there, they might not be friendly. We need to be ready." The Terran Defense Initiative began with a budget smaller than most military coffee purchases. 12 scientists, 16 engineers, a handful of forward-thinking officers from various armies. By 1990, they had underground facilities on every continent. The genius lay in hiding everything in plain sight. Nuclear waste storage facilities that weren't storing waste, deep geological research stations that weren't studying rocks, mining operations that dug too deep and went in the wrong directions. General Kim Soo-jin, now commanding the entire operation, walked through the Seoul Command Center. Banks of quantum computers hummed beneath the city, processing scenarios that civilian scientists couldn't imagine. "Status report," she commanded. "Ma'am, North American grid is at 60% power. European installations reporting full readiness. Pacific Defense Network coming online in 4 hours." For 43 years, humanity had prepared. They studied every science fiction movie, every alien invasion story, every theoretical paper on asymmetric warfare. They built weapons specifically designed to fight enemies with superior technology, railguns that could accelerate projectiles to 12% of light speed, quantum computers that could predict enemy movements faster than organic minds could think, orbital platforms disguised as space junk, armed with fusion reactors that could power small cities. Most importantly, they trained people. Han Gi-soo hadn't, retired to a quiet weather station. He'd accepted the most important posting of his military career. The radio operators scattered across remote locations weren't civilians monitoring atmospheric conditions. They were humanity's first line of defense. Colonel Choi Hyun-woo descended into his command bunker beneath the Colorado Rockies. The elevator dropped half a mile through solid granite before opening into a cavern that housed enough computing power to run a small country. "Sir, we're receiving activation codes from all continental commands," his aide reported. "European, grid is online. Asian networks report full operational status. Australian installations have achieved weapon lock on orbital targets." Similar scenes played out across the planet. In the Sahara Desert, Major Yoon Jae-ho powered up laser arrays, hidden beneath sand dunes. Under the Pacific Ocean, Commander Lim So-young activated submarine-launched kinetic weapons that had masqueraded as deep-sea research platforms. The Veltarian fleet continued its lazy patrol patterns, confident in their technological superiority. Their sensors detected the power surges, but dismissed them as primitive industrial activity. They had no idea they were orbiting a fortress that had been 43 years in the making. Admiral Kayardal was about to learn that some species don't just evolve toward spaceflight, they evolve toward war. Han Gi-soo glanced at his weathered wristwatch, the same Seiko his father had given him before the Korean War. 24 hours and 17 seconds had passed since he'd delivered humanity's warning. He keyed his microphone one final time. 24 hours have elapsed. You were warned. The E. Words echoed across every human communication channel on Earth. In the Dark Sovereign's bridge, Admiral Kayardal heard the transmission and felt a chill run down his scaled spine. Something in the human's voice had changed. The politeness was gone. What remained was cold professional certainty. All ships, Target Earth's remaining population centers, Kayardal commanded. We end this farce now. 200 Veltarian warships rotated their massive plasma cannons toward the planet below. Energy cores that could power small stars began charging to full capacity. In weapons bays throughout the fleet, automated loading systems prepared warheads designed to crack continents. But as the first ship powered its weapons, something impossible happened. The Himalayas exploded, not from alien fire, but from within. Entire mountainsides peeled away like flower petals, revealing gleaming metal structures the size of city blocks. Railguns longer than aircraft carriers emerged from hidden silos, their magnetic coils crackling with barely contained energy. What in the seven hells? Kayardal began. The first salvo launched at 12% of light speed, tungsten projectiles the size of telephone poles, accelerated by magnetic fields more powerful than anything in the Veltarian arsenal, crossed the distance to orbit in 0.3 seconds. No time to dodge, no time to raise shields, no time to think. The dreadnought Eternal Conquest simply ceased to exist. One moment it was a kilometer-long monument to Veltarian engineering. The next, it was expanding plasma and scattered debris. Evasive maneuvers, Kayardal screamed, but two more kinetic rounds found their targets. The heavy cruisers, Bloodtide and Fallen Star, vanished in brilliant flashes that lit up Earth's night sky. Across the planet, more mountains opened like mechanical flowers. The Alps revealed fusion-powered beam arrays. The Rockies bristled with weapons that had no names in any Veltarian language. The Andes launched swarms of what looked like metallic insects, autonomous hunter-killer drones that moved like living creatures, but struck with the precision of guided missiles. "Sir, we're reading massive energy spikes from the planet's surface," Tactical Officer Kexthor reported, his voice cracking with panic. "Hundreds of installations coming online simultaneously." "Impossible. Our scans showed primitive technology." "They were shielded, sir. Everything was shielded." In a command bunker 2 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean, Commander Lim So-young watched 17 Veltarian ships on her tactical display. Each red dot represented a target that had been tracked and analyzed since the moment the alien fleet arrived. "All stations, this is Pacific Command. You have green light for Operation Thunderbolt, weapons free." Her fingers danced across quantum-encrypted controls. Orbital platforms that had drifted in Earth's debris field for decades suddenly blazed to life. Fusion reactors that had masqueraded as dead satellites revealed their true purpose as they pivoted toward alien targets. Beams of concentrated starfire lanced across the void. 17 Veltarian ships found themselves under simultaneous attack from directions they hadn't even known were possible. Their shields, designed to deflect planet-killing weapons, simply couldn't adapt fast enough to the coordinated assault. But humanity's true masterstroke was something the Veltarians couldn't see or understand. Dr. Yoon Jae-hyuk had spent 30 years designing the quantum warfare net, an artificial intelligence system that existed not in one computer, but distributed across thousands of quantum processors buried beneath Earth's major cities. It had been analyzing Veltarian technology from the moment their ships dropped out of hyperspace. Every energy signature, every tactical formation, every communication protocol. The AI had learned their language in 6 hours, cracked their encryption in 12. By the 18-hour mark, it was predicting their battle tactics better than their own commanders. "Admiral," Kexthor's voice rose to a shriek, "they're targeting our weak points. Reactor couplings, shield. Generators, weapons arrays, how do they know our ship designs?" The Dark Sovereign shuddered as invisible attackers struck with surgical precision. Not the brute force bombardment of primitive species, but calculated strikes that maximized damage while conserving ammunition. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than our computers can count them," Communications Officer Vexmar reported. "The cruiser squadron is gone. Both destroyer wings are taking heavy casualties. We have to retreat." "Retreat?" Kayardal's pride warred with his survival instinct. "We are the Veltarian hegemony. We don't retreat from primitives." But the tactical display told a different story. Red dots were winking out across the screen as human weapons found their marks. Ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds were burning debris falling through Earth's atmosphere. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were winning. A proximity alarm screamed as something struck the Dark Sovereign's hull. Not a projectile or energy beam, but something that moved and thought. Automated repair drones equipped with quantum processors and molecular disassemblers. They burrowed through the ship's armor like metallic termites, dismantling critical systems from within. "Hull breach on decks 12 through 18, the damage control officer reported. "Sir, they're inside the ship." Admiral Kayardal watched his fleet die in real time. 30 minutes after the humans had activated their weapons, over half the invasion force was gone. The survivors were fleeing toward the edge of the solar system, broadcasting desperate warnings on emergency frequencies. "All ships, retreat to jump distance," he commanded, his voice hollow with defeat. Emergency hyperspace activation. But as the Dark Sovereign attempted to withdraw, a final human weapon revealed itself. Not from the planet's surface, but from Luna, Earth's moon. The entire lunar surface split open like an egg, revealing the largest railgun ever constructed. A weapon so massive it used the moon itself as a firing platform. The projectile that emerged was the size of a skyscraper, accelerated to 15% of light speed by magnetic coils that wrapped around the moon's equator. Admiral Kayardal had just enough time to activate his emergency beacon before the kinetic strike turned his flagship into cosmic dust. His final transmission reached Veltarian High Command seconds before his death. "Do not engage this species. They are not prey. They are apex predators. Earth is not a planet. It is a weapon." The surviving alien ships fled into hyperspace, leaving behind only wreckage and the echo of humanity's first lesson to the galaxy. Some warnings should be taken seriously. The crystal spires of Veltar Prime pierced the crimson sky like frozen lightning. For 2,000 years, these towers had stood as monuments to the hegemony's power. 1,200 conquered worlds had sent tribute to fill their vaults. Countless species had knelt before their crystal thrones. Today, the towers cast shadows over something unprecedented: human starships. The fleet that emerged from hyperspace above the Veltarian homeworld bore no resemblance to the primitive chemical rockets their intelligence had documented 6 months earlier. Sleek vessels with hulls that seemed to bend light itself hung in perfect formation above the planet. Their design spoke of brutal efficiency, every line optimized for war, every surface bristling with weapons that defied conventional physics. Ambassador. Oh Sung-min stepped from the lead ship's shuttle onto the crystal landing platform. The former Marine colonel moved with the easy confidence of someone who'd survived 3 wars and countless diplomatic negotiations. Behind him walked General Kim Soo-jin, daughter of the visionary who'd started humanity's long preparation, and Admiral Park Dong-hyun, the tactical genius who designed their new stellar fleet. The Hegemony Council waited in their great hall, a cathedral of living crystal that had witnessed the surrender of civilizations spanning half the galaxy. But today the usual positions were reversed. The humans weren't petitioners begging for mercy. They were offering terms. "Honored counselors," Oh Sung-min began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. 6 months ago you sent a fleet to conquer Earth. That fleet no longer exists. Council leader Zarex Thul, an ancient Veltarian whose scales had witnessed a millennium of conquest, leaned forward on his crystal throne. "We are aware of your defensive capabilities. You have earned the right to negotiate your planet's status within the hegemony." Oh Sung-min smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both diplomatic and terrifying. "I think you misunderstand our position. We're not here to negotiate Earth's surrender. We're here to discuss yours." The crystal hall fell silent, except for the harmonic resonance of the living walls. Veltarian councillors exchanged glances of disbelief. In 2 millennia, no species had ever spoken to them this way. "The hegemony has 2 choices," the human ambassador continued calmly. "Abandon your conquest model and join the Terran coalition as equals, or face the same fate as your invasion fleet." General Kim Soo-jin stepped forward, activating a holographic display that showed star maps stretching across the galaxy. Red dots marked former hegemony territories. Blue indicated worlds that had already joined humanity's growing alliance. In the past 6 months, 47 species have declared independence from hegemony rule, she announced. The Zephyron Republic has allied with Earth. The crystalline hives have placed themselves under human protection. Even your oldest subjects are choosing freedom over servitude. The map told an impossible story. The hegemony's territorial borders were collapsing faster than their commanders could respond. World after world was breaking away, protected by human fleets that seemed to appear from nowhere. Admiral Park Dong-hyun spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Your military commanders have undoubtedly briefed you on our technological capabilities. In 6 months, we reverse-engineered your hyperspace drives, improved your shield technology, and developed weapons systems that make your dreadnoughts look like children's toys. He wasn't boasting. The human ships orbiting Veltar Prime were living proof, vessels that could cross the galaxy in days rather than months, weapons that could crack moons, shield generators powered by miniaturized stars. But perhaps most terrifying was their speed of innovation. What had taken the Veltarians centuries to develop, humans had mastered and improved upon in weeks. Their military doctrine wasn't built on overwhelming force like the hegemonies. It was built on adaptation, evolution, and the assumption that any enemy could be defeated if you understood them well enough. Council leader Zarek Thul's ancient eyes studied the humans before him. He'd ruled for 800 years, conquering species across the spiral arm. But he recognized something in these newcomers that chilled his blood. They didn't fight like prey animals desperately defending their territory. They fought like apex, predators expanding theirs. What exactly are you proposing? He asked carefully. Oh Sungmin gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show detailed plans for galactic restructuring. The Terran Coalition offers partnership, not conquest. Former hegemony worlds choose their own governments. Trade flows freely between systems. Military forces exist for mutual defense, not oppression. And if we refuse, the ambassador's smile never wavered. Then you join your invasion fleet. It wasn't a bluff. Every Veltarian in the hall could see the orbital platforms positioning themselves above their capital, could feel the targeting sensors painting their crystal spires. Human ships waited in hyperspace throughout their territory, ready to emerge. At key strategic points, the Hegemony Council deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, Council leader Zarek Thul's voice carried the weight of historical inevitability. The Veltarian hegemony votes unanimously to join the Terran Coalition. Back on Earth, Han Gisu sat in his Montana radio station, now officially, designated as humanity's first diplomatic outpost. The weathered building had been expanded with crystal communication arrays and quantum transmitters that could reach every corner of the galaxy. But Han still preferred his old analog equipment for the important messages. Young technician Lee Jong-ho, fresh from the Seoul Academy, watched the elderly operator with obvious curiosity. "Sir, can I ask you something?" "Shoot, son. When you gave that first warning to the alien fleet, how did you know they'd listen?" Han Gisu chuckled, the same sound that had echoed through his station for 30 years. "I didn't know they'd listen, but I knew humanity would be ready either way." He pointed through the window at the stars visible in the Montana sky. "See, kid, the thing about bullies is they only understand one language, and we humans have been speaking that language for a very long time." The old operator stood and walked to his primary transmitter, the same equipment he'd used to deliver humanity's ultimatum 6 months earlier. But now his voice would carry to 1,000 worlds, to species that had never known freedom, to civilizations ready to write their own futures. Han Gisu keyed his microphone and spoke the words that would echo across the galaxy. "This is Earth, we're still here, and we're not going anywhere." The Terran Coalition grew stronger every day. Former slaves became partners, ancient enemies found common ground. And somewhere in the Montana mountains, an old soldier smiled as he monitored the radio chatter of a galaxy learning to speak the language of freedom. The end.